Standing up in McKinney. This is According to
Calluses.
And we're back. It is episode 687. My daughter apparently did not have enough pain and suffering on the first episode she did with me, so she's come back. She's graced me with another one. And I would say back by popular demand, but, well, I'm afraid that people might like my daughter better than me. In any case, here we go, episode 687. Abby's back. And as I say, do me a solid, like, share, subscribe to this here podcast. Join me on the social media of your choice. Facebook, Gab, MeWe, and you can still find me over at YouTube. The algorithms don't like us, so you have to help me out there. And if you're feeling particularly froggy, feel free to rate and or review this here program. Maybe do both. All right, so the format for today is Abigail's got 5 questions for Dad. Apparently, she's only agreed to 2 questions from Dad. And then at the end, we'll have 2 fun questions. So I'll let her start. I'll let her do the first 2, and then I'll hit her with 1. All right, Abs, the mic is yours.
Make sure to also comment and let us know if Daughter Day should be a weekly occurrence. We can make a funny hashtag.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know. Hashtag Abby's Amazing Monday.
All right.
Okay, so here's my first question. Oh, dear Father of mine. Can you recall a specific event, experience, or person that has significantly influenced your political beliefs besides Ron Paul?
Besides Ron Paul? Wow.
Well, I'm sure you'll fanboy about him, but expand more than just Ron Paul's existence.
Okay, well, I think I was probably abnormally politically aware when I was a child, insofar as I realized there was this kind of thing in the background, like communism versus non-communism, or vice versa. And I understood intrinsically that I don't want other people to take my stuff. And I'm content with what I have. I don't need to take other people's stuff. And when you make it as simplistic as that, it's pretty simple to understand how that goes. So that being said, prior to really knowing who Ron Paul was, the first thing I ran across was probably Rush Limbaugh. So you had the Clarence Thomas trial, if you will, right? Where they were trying to determine whether or not he was qualified to be on the Supreme Court. And Rush Limbaugh was kind of relatively new on the air in the Milwaukee area, and just the way he picked it apart, and, you know, the way he approached things was with humor and, for the most part, good taste, and just really never let the other guy see him sweat. He always had an answer. He was quick-witted, and there was always something there beyond the fluff. And to me, that was impressive. Beyond that, of course, then it's Ron Paul, but yeah. So, does that answer the question?
Was there like a specific experience in your life where you were like, wow, like I have to pay attention to this?
Yeah, it was the Clarence Thomas.
Okay.
I keep calling it a trial, but it wasn't. They just kind of turned it into a trial. But when they were trying to get him approved to serve on the Supreme Court, yeah.
Do you think it's also connected to your love of history? Like you were just like picking up notes of policy and politics in the history while you were learning it, like as a student at school?
Well, I think it would be fair to say, because I was aware, like especially in middle school, when we went through the lessons on the Civil War and the outcome of that, and then we went into like World War II history, and you saw where the politics had a direct impact on what those countries did, and where those differences brought about horrific outcomes. I mean, even our own quote-unquote Civil War, they try and, well, I guess I'm maybe skipping ahead, but when we were in school, they taught us it was only about slavery. And of course, being from Wisconsin, Lincoln's a hero. Lincoln could do no wrong. And I went to a school named after him. But so you only got one side of the story. And then, of course, when you get to college and when you learn more, you find out there were so many things that were going on long before that. And yes, slavery was an important issue, but it wasn't the only issue. It wasn't the only thing. And there were a lot of other things going on. And, for me, it was surprising to find out that when the issue of succession came up, it was the Yankee states that wanted to secede long before the South ever took action and did secede. So, that's just, knowing those things, and then when you see what's going on, in the late 80s and then the early 90s, and, it was an interesting time to be a young man and see this stuff unfold. And it was in one part invigorating, the other part exciting, but always informative to just kind of see the stuff play out and see why it makes a difference. Oh, hey, the local fire department's busy. Oh. All right. I don't know if you all hear that or not, but there you go.
Do you think your time in the Navy also affected your interest in that, or no?
So, interestingly enough, in the Navy, a lot of us, I wouldn't say we were apolitical, but we put our politics in our back pocket, right? Because you're serving with guys that are from different parts of the country. They grew up different ways. They had different ideas, maybe not different religions, but different denominations. Everybody was different, but we all wore that navy blue, and we were all on Team Navy, and they were our shipmates. So I would say, if any time in my life that politics was very low-key, it would be that time, honestly, while I was in the service. And then there were some very, striking things that happened. There was I want to say it was the World Trade Center bombing, Randy Weaver, Oklahoma City bombing. Those all went on in that same time period. And I think the Branch Davidian thing might have actually occurred while I was still in the service. It's been a while, but that all that stuff took place in the early part of the Clinton administration, and I'm really hesitant to blame Bill Clinton. There's plenty of things you can blame Bill Clinton for, but those things I don't know that that's something you can objectively lay at his feet. But in any case.
Okay, so I guess we've been talking a lot about your passion for politics and how you came to, I don't know, realize that it was there. But you haven't always been at least as plugged in and active in local politics as you are now. So what inspires you to do that, and how did you do it? For people listening that want to get into the local politics, how would you recommend that they join? Because it feels like everybody knows each other and it's already a set place,
Okay, so what question are we on here, Abigail?
Number 2.
Right, number 2. So wow, that was a long first question there. Okay, so I would say that after the election of 2008, I was disheartened, and I just kind of came to the place where I thought I was spending way too much time worried about things that I could not change and that weren't, quite frankly, going to make a difference on the national scene. So I took a pause, I took a break, probably almost a whole year where I just didn't worry about it. And I would say it was refreshing, but it was refreshing in the sense that it was learning to accept that there are things that are just not worth getting upset about, right? It didn't really matter what Barack Obama was doing in D.C. It didn't really matter what the Democrats or Republicans were doing in D.C. It really didn't affect the majority of things that were happening here in Texas. So I would say about the time that that's playing out, probably a year or so later is when the Tea Party became a thing, right? It kind of started after the bailouts, which were in '08, which kind of started under Bush, and then Obama kind of took over and ran with it. So both sides kind of sold out the American people, and that's where I took a time out. I took a break. And it's funny because looking back in retrospect, it wasn't about 2 years later, and a friend of mine said, "Stephen, I'm going over to the dark side. I'm gonna run for office." I said, "Oh, don't do that." He goes, "No, I think it's a good opportunity. I'm going to do it. I think I can make a difference." And he told me what he was going to run for, and I'm like, "Okay, well, that sounds good." And let me know, and I'll help you in any way I can. We're going to leave his name out of it just because it's not necessary to talk about that. But so that went on, and then I got kind of re-engaged, and then I had an opportunity to serve on a couple of different county boards following, shortly after that. And I saw that you can, in fact, make a difference at the local level, and the county is local as far as, partisan politics goes. So I got involved with that. I became a precinct chair, I want to say, around that same time period. And that's when I got involved in that. Then I started to figure out. So we'll revisit the rest of that story when you get, I think you got a follow-up question on that. But I think that the notion that you can't make a difference is a mistake. And the idea that you can't, that nothing you do matters is also an equal mistake. You just have to kind of think about it. So I think you've got a question that we talked about that we'll touch on that.
So people that are listening that they don't know how to get involved, would it be fair to say, I feel like a lot of people, if you're not paying attention to politics, it's very easy to be unaware, especially of local ones. So would you think it's fair to say if someone is seeking to get involved that really, probably at least one person they interact with on a daily basis
Okay, so
is
is this still technically question number
Yes.
2? Oh my gosh.
I'm trying to get you to say how you can get involved if you don't know where to go.
Fair enough. Okay. So of course, as always, the show's named according to Callus, and it's my opinion and my understanding of things. So your mileage may vary, as they say. But so there's 3 primary ways to get involved. One is to go to your city hierarchy, right? The organization at city government, and volunteer or seek to serve on a board or a committee or something. I think pretty much anybody can do that, but you have to go in with a blank slate. Now, myself, I'm pretty partisan, and I don't think there's a whole lot of people that would be on city council that would be excited to have me go serve on a city board or city commission or anything like that. That being said, I don't know that they'd be hostile, but they would probably prefer a different brand, okay? So that's option 1. Option 2 is you can get involved at the partisan level, which would be at the county party, essentially. So there's precinct chairs, there's block captains, all this different stuff that I've talked about a lot on this podcast, that you just show up at the county headquarters for the Republican Party, or if you're a Democrat or Libertarian and you're still listening to me, God bless you, but you can go to those local parties and say, hey, I want to get involved, I want to make a difference, I want to do something. And they're dying for volunteers all the time. They want people that are going to give them some time, give them some money, and be invested in what's going on. And that's kind of the second primary way. So both of those are organizational in nature. The third way would be with political clubs. Now, this can be something as simple as the Tea Party back in the day when they existed, right? They were formed largely in response to the way the Republicans let us all down, or sold us out, or however you want to phrase it. Most of them were right of center. I wouldn't say they were hard right, but they were right of center, and they just wanted to hold our people that were elected accountable and make sure that they did the job that we hired them to do. But they were outside of the party organization. And then some would say, well, the parties infiltrated the Tea Party and kind of took them over. I would say that's true in some localities, but in other localities, the people that were in these political clubs, or the Tea Party people, they got involved in the county politics, and they certainly left an imprint, if not took over several counties. So it's a little both, but certainly a club or an organization outside of the party itself is another way to get involved. And you can have influence over elected officials because your club gives money or you work for them. And that's both at the city or county and even the state level. So there's lots of opportunities within clubs or other, let's call them, partisan organizations that are not the parties. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, this next question is...
You're gonna get 3 questions?
I'm giving you 5 questions.
I know, but you gave me 2, so I get to give you 1, right?
Oh, I thought I was doing all 5 in a
No.
row. Oh.
All right, we're back from some technical difficulties there. I'm not quite sure what happened. But anyways, my question for you, Abigail, is who is, in your opinion, the most important or your favorite founding father, and why?
Well, for those of you listening that don't know, my father majored in history in college, so this is a very scary question to be asked by him because he knows everything, and I just have a mere high school education in 1 college class on history.
Stop.
I'm kidding.
There's no wrong answer except for Alexander Hamilton, of course.
Alexander Hamilton.
And you forget, I was a double major. I did political science too.
I know.
Yeah. But no, okay.
Anyway, so the reason for my answer, first I want to say, my whole life I've been very aware of political parties. I don't know if that's for all kids normal, but when both sides of your family come from Wisconsin and you live in Texas with very red voting family, going to Wisconsin and realizing like that people have different opinions when you're there for Christmas or the summer or whatever has made me very aware of it. And for the most part, from my observance as a child, I've never thought that caused like a rift in our family and made people like hate each other. At least from all the people I've interacted with, people with different opinions have got along fine. But I know that it's not like that in everyone's family, and it's not like that in the world, you know? Like I was saying before, like I'm scared to say what I believe about things all the time because I'm scared that I'll be ostracized or judged or whatever.
But to be clear, this is by people not in your immediate family, correct?
Well, I was just saying in general. Like,
right.
I'm scared to go to Walmart in my daddy's home shirt because someone might throw an egg at my head, you know? Things like that. So, anyway, because of that, when I was learning about history in my school days, I was very drawn to George Washington because he, like, warned everyone about having parties and splitting up and how that is harmful and dangerous for the country. So I think I would say George Washington, you know, he's the first president and there's many great things about him that I could say. But I think the one thing that I just always thought was really cool and that I really liked about him and I thought was really impactful was that he was really concerned about the country being united as one, which I think is something that the country could benefit from if we move towards that. But right now we are in such a divided time. I don't really see that as being possible, which is kind of sad. But so because of all that, I would say George Washington.
So to translate, if you will, what you're saying is you appreciated the fact that he sought to transcend the partisan divide as it was potentially developing at that time. In other words, looking at the bigger picture and not getting caught up in the other stuff. That at least that was the way he thought and believed, didn't always follow through. Would that?
Yeah, I feel like just because his ideas were based in caring about the people and like them being together.
Okay.
Because we're all in this world fighting each other about things that we see the harm from and some things that we haven't seen the harm from yet.
Okay.
And we forget, like, this person is just another person trying to make it through their life. And we don't have to be, like, hating everyone just because they don't want to vote for Trump, you know?
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll let you have your third question. Go ahead.
Okay, so don't get mad, but this is like a 2-part question. So, just listen. Just absorb this question. What role do you believe the media plays in shaping political opinions, and how do you navigate it? And then do you believe that this causes pressing issues to be overlooked?
Okay. That's actually probably a GTP question, but yes, I'll go with it.
GPT?
Yeah, whatever.
And actually edited it, so
Okay.
that's kind of mean.
So it's Abby's version of it. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm Taylor Swift. This is Abby's version of ChatGPT questions.
Okay, so I would say this. I believe the media, in fact, has a very important role, or at least they should. I think they've abdicated that role, but I think it's always been that way. I mean, even Thomas Jefferson and John Adams would lament the fact that the press was such a mess. But at least back then, the press was openly partisan, and you would get two sides of the story so that you could figure out which was probably the accurate understanding of what happened. I mean, today they pretend to be objective. They pretend to be quote unquote above the fray, but the reality is almost everything you see and hear in the press is an opinion hidden and disguised. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, that was one of the things that I appreciated about Fox News early on is their show Hannity and Colmes, which I know people feel differently about it than I do, but I don't enjoy Sean Hannity by himself. But when it was Sean Hannity and Alan Colmes, there was some balance and there was some bickering, and they would give both sides of the story, and it was give and take. And while Hannity more often than not got the upper hand, or at least it appeared that way, it was educational, informative, and entertaining. But if you're just getting one guy that's pontificating on the news and then kind of glossing over what actually happened along the way, I'm not sure they're serving the purpose. Now, that being said, some would say, well, Callis, you do the same thing on your show. Well, I don't pretend to be the news. I might talk about an issue or an item that occurred and what my thoughts are on it. But if I'm going to say this is the news, I need to offer this is the news and maybe this is what I think it means. And I think the press can and should do that. I think at times in the past they were, let's say, more balanced or did a better job portraying themselves as objective. I don't know that they ever really were. But certainly the editors determine what you see and hear by what they don't put out and by what they do put out. So to answer the second part of your question immediately is, yeah, I think that when they tell you all the time the same message, they're purposely leaving out other things that are going on, or they're trying to craft an outcome. And I get it. I would say that I'm disappointed with it, but I understand that's what's at play. I mean, if you look at most of the news stations, or the quote-unquote cable news stations, they're funded by Big Pharma. So do you think any of those news stations are ever going to give you objective news or news that is in the slightest bit critical of any drug or medical situation? I highly doubt it. I mean, but maybe I'm being cynical. Did I answer everything for you?
I think so.
Okay.
But I would like to ask, what do you think social media's role in this plays? Because social media is cool because it's a way for people to express their freedom of speech.
Yes.
But do you think the press misuses social media as a way to manipulate people that don't know a lot, like younger people that don't really pay attention, but then they see like a 30-second video about something and then now they all hate somebody because of something, like, you know?
Sure. Well, we hate Trump, right? I get it. Yeah. I'm not us personally, but just that's the mentality.
I would never. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Okay. But so I think social media had all the potential in the world. And I think to a degree, the way they program the algorithms to feed you more of what you like, or in some cases more of what you don't like, because that's what you interact, that gets more clicks. I think that's all well and good. I don't think the media abuses social media as much as social media plays into what they want you to do. And I think they missed a golden opportunity where they could have bifurcated early on and said, give you the option. I want to see things that I like or I agree with, or I want to see things that I disagree with, or I want to see both. In other words, if they would let you, as the user, dictate the terms of which they feed you the material. And yeah, I mean, social media listens to what we're saying. Our phones, the built-in spy that we carry everywhere with us, it hears everything that we say, and it changes what we see and what we perceive based upon that. And as long as you're willing to go into it understanding that's exactly what's going on, there's no surprises. There's no reason to be upset. You just understand that's the way it is, and you move on. So there are lots of things that happen that you would never hear about if it wasn't for social media. But you also hear about things that aren't necessarily true or are generally manipulated to give you information that's not even close to being accurate. So it's a dual-edged sword for certain.
Yeah. I think something that's also interesting about social media is I think so many people, since you're able to so easily share your opinion in the click of your thumb, people forget that, like, these are real people. Like, I think it's so interesting. Like, people, you know, will share their opinion and the comments are like, kill yourself, I hate you, like, why would you ever think that? And it's like, we're all living in the same world. Like, if you have the freedom of speech to tell someone to kill themselves, they have the freedom to say whatever they want. So I think that's interesting, and I think that goes with what you were saying, where as a user of social media, if you really do not have the maturity to see someone who has a different belief than you, then maybe there should be a way to program it to not feed you things that are people saying things you don't like, because I think a lot of it just goes down to like immaturity and insecurity, because there's ways to have respectful and like productive, and sometimes you have a productive conversation and it's not very, I don't want to say not kind, because we should always be kind, but you know what I mean? Like, you can have like a conversation where you're disagreeing with someone.
Yes.
And you can have a conversation where you're attacking someone, and there's a fine line between that. And I think if you can't consume media that has something you don't agree with without getting in the comments and like being a keyboard wizard and attacking people, then maybe social media isn't for you. I don't know. But then it's also their freedom of speech to say they want to kill someone, so I don't know.
Well, okay, so I'll say there's difference between advocating criminal behavior and advocating an opinion. Okay, that being said, I think people have this modicum of anonymity where they think they can say whatever they want and be as mean or abusive or whatever you want to call it as they want, because they're not seeing the person as a real person. Yeah. And they're not in front of them. I know of several people that I've run across some of their posts, and I think to myself, they would never behave like that if they were in the same room with not just me, but just any of the people they're going after. I can't see that they would act like that in public, in reality. Now, that being said, I do know a few people that can be very abrasive and rude in public. And look, I'm not innocent. I mean, I can hold my own with these kinds of folks, but I don't know how that translates, you know, when you're in person. So myself, I think I've modeled this. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I like to give people a lot of grace, and I don't get upset or mad if somebody disagrees with me. Somebody that I don't know, or somebody that I wouldn't consider a friend. Now, if it's a friend or a family member and they coming up with something out of left field, I'm going to push back. I'm going to be a little more animated, because this is somebody I know well enough that I can push on them. But if it's, you know, some dude that lives somewhere in McKinney that I've probably never met in real life, what do I care? No reason to be upset. Why lose any sleep over it? And I think that's part of the problem, is people do lose sleep over people that mean nothing to them in their real life.
Yeah, I think that's what is kind of scary about social media, is it gives so many people power to do things that 30 years ago they would have never done, because you wouldn't walk up to someone that works in a different part of the office you work in and tell them you hate them because of who they voted for. Like, people are just so brave online because I feel like it's like actually cowardly.
Zero consequence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so...
Which kind of leads me to the next question for you.
Question number 4, go on.
Which is just, how do you approach conversations with people who have different political beliefs? You kind of already answered it, but is there anything else you want to add?
Well, in person, I try to be very amicable. Now, granted, most people self-select the people they spend the majority of their time around.
That's true.
So, for me personally, the vast majority of the time I spend time around people that I largely agree with. Now, that being said, believe it or not, there are those of us that are right of center that do disagree on things. And for the purposes of 90% of the time, I will usually have a discussion. And if it's somebody I know well enough, I'll push back a little bit. And if it's something they feel strongly about, or they have a legitimate answer, in my opinion, legitimate, as to why they believe what they believe, I drop it out of respect. And I say, you know what? We'll just agree to disagree. And we're going to move on, because all these other things that we agree on, this isn't that big a deal. I do kind of the same thing with family or friends. Now, there is a difference, because you're going to deal with people, especially when you're doing political events, that, you know, are on the other side. And I've always tried to have the notion that the vast majority of people I meet that are on the other side are passionate and at least somewhat informed of what they believe and why they believe it. I just think they're wrong, but I don't need to be a jerk to them either, right?
Yeah.
So I give them their space. Now, if they go all hostile on me, you know, most of the time I laugh it off. I mean, but there are lines that can be crossed. I mean, to me, I wouldn't say at all costs, but I do my absolute best to avoid going personal. I mean, and it's a cheap shot, right? Especially online, it's always a cheap shot to go personal or call names, which is not to say I've never called names, because I think sometimes it's appropriate to call somebody a name or refer to them by a nickname, particularly when they're acting a fool. So you're calling it out. But for normal conversation, even when you're disagreeing, it's probably not a good idea or appropriate, because it also degrades you, right?
Yeah.
It makes your arguments
It
less.
goes back to, like, the way that you treat other people that...
Oh, you mean that golden rule thing?
Well, it goes back to, like, people that you disagree with. Like, if you treat them poorly, like, it just reflects more about your insecurity and your immaturity than it does get your point across, I feel like, 90% of the time. And I think something you've always said to me growing up is... You're like, I'd rather people be informed and form opinions than to just blindly do nothing or just like go with the majority. Because you've always told me, like, I'd rather you have different beliefs than me and know why you believe them rather than just agree with everything I say all the time.
Well, actually, I would prefer you agree with me all the time.
Well, lucky for you, I do.
That's not true. But no, I told your sister the same thing. I've told you that you know, that, look, it's okay to not agree with the old man as long as you know why what you believe. And that's, to me, that's the mark of being an adult. That's a mark of a certain amount of maturity. And it's an expectation as you become an adult, you're going to find different things, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess it's time for my second question for you.
I guess it is.
And now I don't remember what it was. So I'll tell you what, while you go on to your fifth question, and I'll think of my second question for you since I lost track of it.
Okay. How do you balance idealism with practicality in political decision making?
See, now that's a really good question. And I've talked about this on more than one occasion. So I believe most people that are involved politically are driven by ideology, right? Their preference, what they feel strongly about, what animates them, what activates them. And that's great. Nothing would change if people weren't motivated driven by an ideology or an idea. Now, ideology can become a trap, right? But by and large, I think having a worldview or an understanding of things and that animates you to get things done is great. Then there's reality. And this kind of in part goes back to I believe was the second question. You're going to run into the organization or the powers that be, or whatever nickname you want to give them, right? And you have to determine, is my goal, whatever it might be, obtainable in this current form? Or do I need to move towards this goal through other forms that are palatable to the people that are actually in charge? I think, as frustrating as it is for me that we still don't have, like, say, true constitutional carry in Texas, I understand, at least theoretically, why they did it in steps, right? Because there was a lot of people in Texas even, which is crazy, but in Texas that were afraid that if we, the people, were armed and we carried it on our hip, concealed or unconcealed, that there'd be pandemonium in the streets. And they were very cautious about expanding that. But what's interesting to me is they're never cautious about reducing rights or restricting liberties or pushing back and telling you no. I mean, they shut down the whole state at the order of the governor, usurping the authority of the legislature and everything because he was afraid of the sniffles. Maybe that's mean, but that's what it boils down to. So, again, so you have to balance. Can I get done what I want to do now, or do I need to work a longer strategy? And I think that's the thing. You should never give up your principle. You never want to forget your end goal. You never want to let go of what it is that's important to you. But you have to be willing to work with the system that exists and kind of bend the system, if you will, or bend yourself to the system to get the outcome that you want long term. And sometimes that means you have to step sideways a whole lot in order to get to the end goal, or maybe even take a step back to dodge an obstacle, but you always have to keep the end goal in mind. So I guess that's how I'd answer that.
Okay.
All right.
Good answer.
Oh, thanks. Gee. So I guess my second question for you, I even gave you a heads up on what I was thinking about asking.
Yeah,
I cannot remember.
I kind of forgot it too.
So we're going to pause, and I'm going to get it. For the purposes of this discussion, we're going to say the question is, what is the most important issue to you personally that would help you decide, what you want to do or what your vote is or what you want to support? And there's not a wrong answer because it's your issue.
Well, I think kind of what you were just talking about, people are so easy to strip away rights that we have. And so going back to the Constitution and honoring that, when I see that somebody is against the Second Amendment, I'm like, oh, so you want to take away all of the other rights written in there? Because to me, you can't just rip apart the Constitution and be like, oh, we'll honor this but not this. So I think that's one thing that I care about. Specifically, I guess, the right to bear arms. I know I said the Second Amendment, but I think people should be able to protect themselves, and I don't think you should have to jump through 1,000 hoops to be able to do that. And the second thing is abortion. I think that's really important to me. It's really important in our family, I feel like. Having a mom who's a NICU nurse, seeing about difficult situations for families with their babies, but watching them walk through it and love their baby, even if their baby only makes it for 3 months. I just think that's really important. And I think God creates all human beings for a reason, and we should honor the creation of that life.
So, so that's kind of, interesting because your mom's, career in dealing with babies that have congenital problems and getting them fixed and walking through that with a lot of parents. And then, of course, your big sister was a pro-life, or I guess still is a pro-life activist, right? Spent a ton of time doing that, the Walk for Life, and being at clinics and such. And I always was kind of surprised because it was never something that I would spend a bunch of time talking about. It was just something that you guys gravitated to naturally. I think that'd be a fair statement. Yeah,
I think so. I guess just being a girl, it seems, personal which, I mean, everybody's a person and everybody was born, so I guess it's personal to everyone in a sense, but I just think, to me, that is abortion is such a harsh, sad reality of our world, and I honestly I don't know, I just, like, can't imagine why that's an option and, like, why it's being fought to be, like, legalized in a normal thing, because
the license to kill?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me sick to think about it. So I think that, which is, I think is, like, an easy cop-out answer, because, you know, that's one of the things people argue about the most, but, like, I think people argue about it the most because it's such a big deal. And one of the things we talked about in my rhetoric class in college was that things like abortion are a moral dispute, and so you will always be arguing with someone because it's rooted in your moral beliefs, and if you don't have the same moral beliefs, then you will always be arguing and going in circles. So, like, for me, because I'm a Christian, and like I said, I believe God creates all life for a reason, that life is valuable to me because it was created by God. But somebody that hears that argument that is not a Christian, that holds no weight with them. So I think that's part of the reason why that's so important to me. And just like I was saying with the Constitution, like, these rights that we have written down in the Constitution and in the amendments and in the Bill of Rights are important, and in the same sense, we are humans with the right to our life that has been conceived.
Right.
And so to me, I'm like, how dare you take away that baby's right to have a life? You don't get to decide if their life is valuable or not, if it's inconvenient for you, or if they're going to be born with some illness or disability. That's not your choice whether or not they're a valuable person that should be born.
Well, I guess it should be said that you have a uterus, so you're allowed to have that opinion.
Yeah.
But thank you. All right, so that was kind of heavy, right? It's been 42 minutes, so let's try and end on a light note.
Okay.
So you have 2 questions for us to answer, correct?
Yes. And this one, I'm making you answer first because I'm so curious about your answer.
Okay, all right.
So, number 1, if you could swap lives with me for a day, what is the first thing that you would do?
I'd sleep in until about 11.
I knew you were going to say that! You were like, I would sleep in and eat all my parents' food and lay in bed all day and watch TV. I know that's what you would say.
No, actually, in fairness, if I could swap with you, say, a year ago, I'd love to go to class. I mean, no, I'm telling you, and I know I told you this before, when I was in college and I was like 8-10 years older than all the other students in there, I had a blast. I loved my college courses. They weren't all that terribly difficult for me personally, but it was good to see the give and take, and we actually usually had good discussions. And even if the couple of professors that were, let's say, more obvious than others what their personal opinion, but I never really had a bad professor. I really never had anybody that was like difficult to deal with. I mean, and they were all professionals, and that's my biggest takeaway. But I would love to go back to college and, you know, do that. I think that'd be a ton of fun. But I don't.
You heard it here first. Stephen Cowell's going back for his master's.
No. All right. So now you get to answer that question, right? So if you were me for the day, what would be the first thing you'd want to do?
The first thing I would do is open my bank account and see more than not much and go shopping. I'm just kidding.
You already do that.
But I would like...
But Dad...
There would be more opportunity to shop.
I need this. Oh, Dad, please.
Okay, no.
Okay.
I don't know. That's like my funny answer, but I think my real answer is I would just like love to see the world through your eyes. And I don't know if waking up in your body allows me to do that because it would still be like my soul, I guess. But like...
Yeah,
I don't know. I just think it'd be interesting.
I don't know that I'd want to have you experience my brain for a day. You might hate yourself.
Oh my gosh. Well, apparently my life would just be easy eating waffles in bed, so I guess you would like my story.
Next question.
We're just kidding. I don't eat waffles in bed.
Yeah, right. Next question.
Okay. What TV character do you think I am?
Okay, so now we talked about this beforehand.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say what character I think you are, but you have to respond with what character you think you are.
Okay.
And then we'll reverse it. Okay. So I think that the character you most remind me of is Penny from Big Bang Theory.
Why? You think I'm going to work in Cheesecake Factory for the rest of my life?
No, not at all. Well, actually, in the later episodes, Penny does quite well for herself. But she clearly runs that show. Mm. And every time I see you around the little gaggle of guys and even other girls, you're clearly running that show.
Not always.
Oh, I don't know. Just how it looks to me, but I could be wrong. So who do you think you are? What character best defines you?
I don't know.
You better not tell me one of those Gilmore Girls.
No.
Okay.
I honestly think, even though I don't watch this show that much and I'm like not a super avid fan like other people, I kind of feel like, okay, I have two. One, I feel like I'm Monica from Friends because she's kind of like obsessive person, like always likes to like be in control and clean and be what's in the know, which feels like me. But then also, for those people who've watched The Office or Parks and Rec, I feel like I am Erin from The Office and Leslie from Parks and Rec because I'm very bubbly and like fun, and once I get comfortable somewhere I'm like outspoken, and like Leslie from Parks and Rec I'd probably say is the person I most like because she's just so herself, and like I feel like when I'm in my when I'm with people that I'm close to that are my group of friends, I feel like I'm very like myself, and you can like see that I'm like the loud one, the funny one, the silly one, the crazy one, you know? Okay. And I feel like that's Leslie. But also she still is like productive, good at her job, has some respect. Like she's not just like crazy and everyone like disregards her.
Okay. So
that's my answer.
Right.
But I feel like I have a big head from saying all that about myself. So I'm going to move forward to who I think you are.
Oh, boy. Okay.
I also have combination answers for you.
No, you only get one.
No. Okay. One, I feel like you're Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec.
Ron Swanson. Oh, boy. Okay.
Also combined with the grandpa guy from Parenthood. I don't even know his name.
Oh, come on.
Besides where he cheats on his wife, you're not like that at all. But just like kind of his personality where he's just like, hey, everyone.
You talking about Zeke?
Yeah,
oh,
Zeke.
Man. Oh.
What's his last name? Braverman? Yeah.
Oh my
because
gosh.
you're like Ron Swanson, like politically, but like Ron Swanson like hates people and only likes breakfast food and like
Bacon.
wants his door closed. Like you're not like totally like that. That's why I have to like combine it with someone else.
Okay.
Because I don't feel like I'm totally like Penny either. Like there's aspects of her that are not like me at all.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I would like to say that the character that I would like to be most like would be a toss-up.
Of who?
I don't know. Remington Steele, which is before your time, or Gibbs.
Oh my gosh, you're obsessed with Gibbs. You know what? Let's move on to characters we've been told we resemble because mine are very rude. Somebody once told me that my personality...
Yeah, wait a minute. That was the end of it.
Somebody told me that my personality reminded them of Jar Jar Binks. And then later...
No, it's like in middle school. You gotta
then
go
later somebody told me I looked like Jar Jar Binks. They said I had the same eyes as him. That is so mean. Then recently... somebody was like, hey, have you seen Chicken Little? And I was like, yeah, not for a long time. They were like, you remind me of the duck from Chicken Little. You look like her. Guess what? We look her up. Guess what her name was? Abby. Like, are you kidding?
You seem to be scarred for life on this. What the
Yes,
world?
everybody look up Abby from Chicken Little, because I do not look like her.
Oh, well, I think they were just trying to get under your skin, and apparently they were quite successful.
Well, it was mean.
Yeah. You know, for me, I don't know that there's anybody that's me. And maybe that's probably best
You're just
for the
so
world.
unique.
No, I just don't know that I fit a mold that's...
Well, I don't think anyone does.
Yeah, I know.
That's why we have to combine characters.
Yeah, maybe. That's fair.
Because there's
Oh, wow, now I'm talking like a...
certain characteristics of each person.
I'm talking like a Gen Z. Oh, that's fair.
What the heck?
All right. I think we better wrap it up. It's been 51 minutes almost.
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed 51 minutes of us chatting about the world.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's all, folks.
Leave a comment if you want me to come back next week.
And with that, I will see you on the other side.
Delete it if it sounds weird.
Go.
This has been According to Calluses.
Oh, boy.
TexianPride.com is the destination for Texans who want to show off their love for Texas. We don't settle for mediocre. Our shirts are made from 100% high-quality athletic cotton. They're cool, comfortable, and designed to fit and flatter any body type. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Visit TexianPride.com for your next stylish Texas tee.